Hey, this is Bill Cogswell again, doing another walk around Lowell. And this is starting right across the street from where I live. I'll venture further abroad later on. That's our new Justice Building, courthouse, where all of the different courts for the area are located, and a new parking garage they just built for it, and a sculpture. It's been there. It was totally overgrown, but they've with weeds and everything, but they cleaned it up, which is really nice. And this is one of the canals. It actually runs down from just above the falls and was originally connected with a canal called the Middlesex Canal, which ran all the way down to Boston. And this building is the Swamp Locks, and the sort of a multi-purpose building. On the right-hand side there's an actual lock, and I'll come around closer to it later on, that allows barges or boats to be lifted up and down to reach the different levels. And then the main building there is a series of I'm not sure what they would call them. They've got boards that allow them to adjust the water level of what goes over the overflow. And those two boats are run by the National Park Service, and they actually give tours on the canal. They run up to another lock further upstream, and they used to go down and demonstrate how the locks work. And I actually was able to experience that a couple of decades ago, and they don't do it anymore, and I don't sure why. I've been told various reasons, including that the locks weren't working well and they need to repair them, and that they're doing that, and they hope to resume the service, but we shall see. This is another canal that runs off the main canal, which is now right behind me. And these devices here are actually lock gates. And that big iron device is for opening and closing the gates. Quite a few of these informational panels, which are very interesting. And again, this is depicting the swamp locks from the side we're on now, and then the building behind it is actually the building I live in. There's another view of the Justice Center. I was told that it was supposedly designed to incorporate features of the old mills, but I don't see it. So maybe you do. To me, it just looks like a modern building, but It is what it is. And so this is the lower gate to the lock that starts up right by the gatehouse. And there's no pumps or anything involved in this. They just open those metal doors basically, and those what they would do initially is open the ones at the top and close the ones at the bottom, and it would allow the water to flow in and fill up the lock, and then they'd bring whatever boats they were trying to bring through and close the upper gate and then open these lower ones, and it would bring it down and bring it into the level of the water below. Now the water is way too low for that here, you can see, but as I say, when I did the demonstration years ago, it was very, very informative. And then this is sort of a view downstream on the canal with running down past all of the mills. I started to mention in an earlier video that I worked at a furniture manufacturer that was in one of the mill buildings, and most of the buildings at the time were derelict, vacant, and broken and boarded up windows, and there were a few that had businesses in them, and then but most of them were in pretty terrible shape. And they since have been all resurrected and rebuilt, and they're almost all condos now, although a lot of them do have some businesses and other functions in them that are revitalizing the area. This was, as I say, pretty desolate when I was working here. One of the few businesses that were in a working building, and all of the ones around us were all derelict. A lot of homeless people living in them. And it's just amazing to think of these mills. You know, they're just all powered by water power initially. Later, many of them were converted to steam. And huge, huge looms and other fabric processing machinery. And this is Jackson Street, and it's actually the street that the mill building I worked in was on. And we'll actually end up walking by it in a few minutes. On the right are the Appleton Mills, now all condos and apartment buildings. Afternoon. It also houses a charter school. On the school days, this is a very busy street, closed to through traffic, just so that parents can come in and drop their kids off, and it's also always lined with school buses. One time, that iron structure up above there was a walkway, covered walkway that ran between the mill buildings on either side of the street, all of which I believe were the Appleton Mills at the time. This is the main entrance of the charter school over there on the right. This is actually the first day of school in Lowell. Welcome back. It's also incredibly hot. We had a relatively cool and rainy summer, and now that it's September and the kids are back in school, the temperatures are up in the 90s, 80s, and 90s, and tropical humidity, and not a lot of the classrooms are air conditioned, I'm told. So walk has sort of another purpose to it as well. As I'm playing the guitar in the pit orchestra for a production of the Rocky Horror Picture Show here in Lowell that's going to be going up at the end of October, close to Halloween. And the books with the scores just came in, so I'm going over to the theater to pick up my copy, and then I can get to work relearning and honing that, getting it ready for the performances. Incredible brickwork. I look at these things and I'm just astounded. You think every one of those bricks was laid by hand. And interestingly, I learned this by working and living in mill buildings, that the walls are much thicker in the lower floors because they've got to support the weight of the upper floors. And so the walls and the windowsills can be a couple of feet thick in the lower levels, and then they thin out a bit towards the top. They're still pretty thick. And I'm going to turn in here and take a walk along through the mills where Adden Furniture used to be located. And this is the upper canal, and the water would flow through the buildings from here to our right and down towards the lower canals and eventually down to the Merrimack River. And there is a water depth indicator, and no, the canal is not almost 84 feet deep. That is actually the water depth in relative to the Charles River where it empties into Boston Harbor. So we are 84 feet above Boston Harbor here. I've seen these canals empty and they're only about 10 feet deep. This is a wasteway gatehouse, and this waterway running underneath it is past all of the mills. So the water that was coming down through here was actually wastewater in the sense that they weren't getting any power out of it. So all of this on the left was good old Dutton furniture. And they made a lot of modifications to it, obviously, to make it habitable. And I'm not sure I would even be able to find my old office or where any of the buildings were. I wish I could get inside because there's some interesting features in here. This was the main employee entrance stairwell, and the stairs were worn, wooden stairs, and from all of the traffic over the years, the stairs were worn into a nearly perfect arc, and it's very interesting to see that. It was a bell curve. Had a momentary lapse there. A bell curve that the arc was. It described it, which is a very common statistical feature if you're mapping out distribution of things. And I'll add a photograph to this video when I get ready to publish it. And it's a photograph of me sitting on a motorcycle. And it was taken against one of these windows. And I'm not sure which one, but it was against one of them. And the reason I have the picture is that the furniture company, as I mentioned in an earlier video, was making furniture for college dormitories and libraries, and they came up with a print ad concept where they put a whole bunch of our furniture in a big pile out in the parking lot and built 2 ramps on either side of it, and then they took a motorcycle, and it was my motorcycle, and put it up on a loading dock and took a picture from below with a fellow sitting on it. And the fellow was an ex-outlaw biker, and they took it from below and then they superimposed that on the furniture picture and made it look like he was flying over it. And the concept of the ad was, if our furniture can stand up to this, it'll handle your college kids. And as payment for using my bike, they took a photo of me sitting on it. And so I have that. And this building, very interesting to me, and I don't know if it's still working or not. It looks like it is, but this is a power generating hydroelectric station underneath. It's got 2 big dynamos in there. And when I say big, they're probably 8 or 10 feet across, and they're run by the water power off the canals. And we did not use any of the power. Instead, it was sold back to the grid and cut our power costs. But it was very nice to me, in my mind, that they we're still using the water power in a renewable energy source. And I wish they did more of it, and I know they took some of them out in various other mills, and I hope that they resurrect some of them. I mean, we've got to do something to reduce our dependency on fossil fuels. So that's about it for now, and I'll post others as time goes on. And now I'm off to collect my score for the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Thanks for watching.